Welcome back to the channel, guys. Hopefully you guys are doing all right. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the truth about modifying a Subaru WRX, specifically a 15 Plus WRX. I'm going to tell you guys everything you need to know about modifying this platform and essentially the things that I didn't know before modifying this. This is not going to be the same video as things I wish I knew before modifying my WRX. This is just a reflection of one of the biggest realities about modifying my WRX, and really an expansion on why I don't owe money on my WRX, and that's a video that I made just recently, and if you haven't already seen it, I highly suggest you checking it out. But I'm gonna give you the rundown of the reality and the real truth behind what it's like to modify a WRX and what you're gonna run into as a owner and somebody modifying this car. Raining and freezing out, and that's why we're not installing the F1 brake light that I have for the car today for this week's video. But I am gonna do some back roads driving as much as I can in freezing rain while it's maybe 30 degrees out. And before we get too far into this video and before we do too many polls, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. We do lots of fun, cool WRX stuff, and we are in the midst of our winter WRX automotive series where most of it is me in the car driving, talking about very sensitive subjects and subjects that everybody really needs to hear about and potentially wants to hear about if they are planning on modifying their WRX STI or potentially looking for a modified car. And if you're looking for a build channel, you're here too, but because I live in Boston, we are very much a seasonal build channel, so there's lots of stuff coming when it warms up. Don't think that's the only interesting thing here. Some of these videos bring in some incredibly juicy information and need to know stuff if you are in the world of modifying cars. Let's get straight into it. So, what is the truth about building a Subaru WRX? Why am I making a video? Why should you listen through this video? And I think that's an important thing because so many of you guys click off so fast. The truth about building a Subaru WRX is all about money. And this video is going to be an in-depth discussion about money, modifying cars, risks, what could happen, and how much money you could be out of pocket if one of those things happen. I'm gonna use real world data. I'm gonna use data that I've been getting from subscribers because I've had over 25 people talk to me about needing rebuilds, having engine failure, taking it in for diagnosis, what their WRXs are costing them on a regular basis just this week. 25 people this week have reached out, and probably almost 500 in the past 4 months. Yes, you heard me right there. 500 individual people have been having discussions about this. So I've got tons and tons of data. So if you don't believe what I'm saying, I promise you it's coming from data that I have collected and I've seen around the community. If you want the quick 1-2 answer about what is the truth about building a WRX, it's the fact that it can cost an exorbitant amount of money. More money than most people think that they are going to invest in their cars and possibly have to spend stepping into a Subaru and a lightly modified ride. Now you get to do things that are fun, like drive through backwoods like this, and when it's a little bit less rainy, you get to go a lot faster, and when there's less cops, you get to push the limit a little bit more, and if you're ever in Mexico, you get to drive like crazy. These are fun, fast cars, and when you modify them, they just become alive, and they're wonderful cars to be in. But look, here's the hard truth. They are so expensive. One, they cost a lot to buy, but let's forget about that for a second. Let's talk strictly modification. Yeah, you could achieve exactly what I'm sitting in now for probably $3,000 comfortably. It might go up a little bit more if you need to do some maintenance on your ride before you do some modification. We're gonna do a little bit of a pull here. I'm gonna feel it out as the tires spin because I am running my summer tires and it is freezing rain, so I've got to be fairly careful here. So let's give it a little gas. So it's funny, is you guys probably can't tell just what happened, but my back started going whoop, 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 whoop. And because of the point of view in the camera and the way it's locked down and with the way the gimbal works, you probably couldn't tell. That is why I looked behind me just to make sure nobody was coming in case I took a left or a right there, because I was kind of fishtailing a little bit there. What happens when you floor these cars is they do divert a lot of that loading on the all-wheel drive system to the rear wheels. So you go like, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but they end up being a lot more at the rear wheels. And that just makes sense also with the physics of all-wheel drive in the car and the way Subaru sets up their symmetrical all-wheel drive. But look, for like $3,000, you can get to where I am at now, plus or minus depending on maintenance you need to do. Might not sound too expensive, but one, $3,000 getting you here just means that you've thrown your warranty out the door most likely, and you're gonna start running your car a little bit hard. Now, I drive my car pretty conservatively. I do pull the car from now and then, especially when I'm driving and doing these videos, and I try to baby the car as much as I can. Not everybody does that. Not everybody wants to do that. The majority of people don't actually do that. So when they put a lot of strain on their car, things happen, things need to get repaired. Now, maintenance on this car is going to go up. I have had to do things like replace parts that I've put on, the electronic boost control solenoid, all the things like that. I've had the car been down for a period of time. Those are inconveniences. I have spent money that I wouldn't have otherwise spent on this car in the means of a couple $100, maybe like $600 or $700 total, which isn't too bad. But here's the kicker. Being tuned, I'm risking my engine and transmission every day, every time I drive this. There's no ifs, ands, and buts. It's just the reality. These cars are not built from Subaru to handle the power that I'm running through them. While they may be able to, they're not built to, and they don't have the same longevity at these power levels. What does that really mean as we sit at the stoplight and we're not enjoying the car? It means that things like engine failure, big ticket items, and transmission issues are gonna come a lot faster. Clutch replacements, costs are going to increase. I'm gonna need a clutch sooner than I would normally need, and I'm still on my stock clutch and I haven't replaced it, but I'm probably not gonna get the 80,000 miles out of this clutch that some people respond to, as I even just start there, and it just didn't grab as much as it normally does. So I think my clutch is maybe already needing a replacement. We'll see. This car, I wish you guys could hear exactly what this sounds like. This car is a monster, especially, I wish I lived in a more unpopulated area. Whenever I'm up in the Adirondacks, this car, I can just absolutely rip it. So look, what's gonna happen if your engine fails or your transmission goes? The average transmission work on this car, if you've got a transmission issue with either the WRX or the STI, it's actually about similar. You're looking at between $6,000 and $9,000 for the manual transmission, and the average expense on the engine, whether it's a full rebuild or just work, actually ends up being between $6,000 and $13,000. You'd be surprised, even minor issues that some people are experiencing seem to hold a minimum of $6,000 to repair. It just seems to be the average. I can't explain it. Things that you would think would be a $3,000 to $4,000 issue ends up being $6,000, because it always ends up being, if I'm going that far into the engine, you may replace this, this, and this. And if you end up going more power here, these costs just get exorbitantly higher. Just for reaching more power in and of itself, you should expect to spend between $3,000 and $10,000, depending on what your goals are. If you're looking to run upwards of 450 wheel horsepower, you should fully expect to spend another $10,000 after you spend getting to exactly where I am on the car, and that doesn't include any exterior stuff. That is strictly performance and tuning, and that doesn't include any maintenance either. That is just to get to the number. So look, if you get further, those costs increase even faster. So what does that all mean? That all means that if you get yourself into a WRX or an STI, you spend a lot of money to get into the sports car. You hopefully don't take a loan. If you do, you're already in debt. Then you spend at least $3,000 or $4,000 in modifications to kind of push the limits of what you can do with a Pro Tune without doing massive work. And then you potentially risk two costs. One, a cost between $6,000 and $12,000, and one, a cost between $6,000 and $9,000. And if you're unlucky to get the latter, you're basically sitting in a $50,000 expense. And it's always the response in the comment sections being, oh, you know, this only happens to one or two people. I kid you not, over the last year, over 100 people that I've talked to, in the last year, over 100 people, they've all been between 300 wheel horsepower and 450 wheel horsepower, and the average investment in their car for these people that have experienced the problem has been between $38,000 and $55,000. Now, those numbers include the costs of the car, they include the build, they include the fix, but what's crazy to me, most of those people have ended up spending an average of $10,000 to $15,000 on fixing their ride when something goes wrong, and even more so, I probably average about one person a month that has experienced both transmission and engine, or two sets of engine failures. The engine fails, they rebuild it, and then the rebuild fails. And those people have spent just on fixes upwards of $30,000 to get their car running again. And that's a number that basically tells me you're in the wrong ride, and it's to no fault of their own, really. You know, they're just doing what people recommend to do. So look, a lot of you guys have been asking me, if you follow the channel, why are you putting so much money into your car when you keep telling people that there's potentially really high expenses? And it's because I love this car. And then some people ask, why are you considering the R35 GTR and the Supra? Because I am, and it's because I also reflect that this car could potentially cost me the same amount as an R35 or a Supra, which are vastly better cars than this and deliver a lot more performance out of the box. Those are my two pieces of reasoning. They're also, the GTR is a dream car of mine. I've wanted to have it forever, so that's why it is on my radar and in the spectrum of the channel. I know this video was a little bit all over the place, not too much, but the reality of the truth of building this car is it's pay to play. It's an unfortunate reality of just owning sports cars and modifying. It's what makes these cars so fun to drive. It also makes them hard for the average person to, one, have, two, upkeep, and three, have fun in. So that said, if you take one takeaway from this video, it is just understand what the risks are with your car and make sure you live within your means. And if you want to live without your means, work your butt off. I'm a huge proponent of, no one should feel like they can't ever get into one of these cars. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. We're gonna call it there. Thank you guys for being here. Stay safe, stay healthy.